state produce approximately 20 million pounds of
What's up?
asparagus
What's
each
up?
year.
What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up in
Many families still choose to harvest by hand. Farmers use specialised knives to cut each asparagus spear right at ground level. Then they gather the harvested asparagus into bundles and prepare them for packaging.
I'm not running to you.
Some more modern farms use semi-automatic support machines. These machines move slowly along the rows, with farmers sitting on sliding boards attached to the machine, bending down to handpick or cut the asparagus. On a larger scale, fully automatic harvesting machines are used. These machines are ploughs that lift the entire asparagus root system from the soil and transfer it to a conveyor belt system to remove dirt and sand. On the machine, farmers sit and pick out the standard asparagus spears, placing them into separate harvesting trays. Michigan also leads the U.S. in cucumber production. On large farms, cucumbers are harvested by machines. The machines move along the cucumber rows, detaching the fruit from the vines and transferring them to conveyor belts. These conveyor belts filter out most of the soil adhering to the cucumbers and transfer them into collection bins. However, on many small farms, farmers still harvest manually. They bend down and gently pick each cucumber by hand to avoid breaking the vines or bruising the fruit. After harvesting, the cucumbers are poured into water tanks to clean and cool them. This helps to maintain their crispness and freshness longer. The vineyards in California enter the harvesting season with the sound of clippers snipping in the early summer. Farmers use sharp shears to cut entire grape bunches, their hands moving quickly. Each bunch of grapes is gently placed into a basket and then poured into large bins in the middle of the vineyard. Unlike humans, tree shakers can operate day and night. But due to their high cost, these machines are only typically used on large farms. With enormous production, grapes are one of the most valuable crops in California, reaching $2.99 billion in 2024. Unlike many vegetables, corn harvesting today is almost entirely mechanized. When the season arrives, farmers drive harvesting machines along the corn rows. The cutting mechanism at the front of the machine separates the ears from the stalks. The corn ears are then transferred into a conveyor belt and moved into collection bins attached behind or next to the machine, ready for transport. The machine operates continuously, processing hundreds of square meters of fields in just a few minutes. Among the US states, Iowa is the largest corn producer, accounting for 30% of the total national output. Unlike corn, eggplants are usually harvested manually. Harvesters use scissors or a knife to cut the stem, avoiding bruising or scratching the fruit skin. Each harvested fruit is gently placed onto a trolley. In some large farms, packaging conveyor belts are even installed directly in the fields. Farmers pick and place eggplants on the conveyor, after which workers inspect, sort, and quickly pack the eggplants into cardboard boxes. In the US, New Jersey is the largest eggplant producer, with a yield of of over 26 million pounds per year. Next, let's go to Washington, where the value of onion production reached around $477 million. In late summer, onion harvesting machines operate at full capacity in the fields. Onion harvesting machines have a special design with a digging mechanism that delves deep into the soil, lifting out the onion bulbs along the roots and surrounding soil. Then the onions are passed through a screening system to remove most of the adhering soil. Cleaner bulbs are then poured directly into collection bins at the rear or into a parallel truck. Thanks to modern machinery, tons of onions can be harvested in just a few hours, saving labour and ensuring high productivity. Zucchini, on the other hand, is a vegetable that is often harvested by hand. Farmers generally use a knife or scissors to cut each zucchini. Then, the freshly picked zucchinis are placed onto a mobile conveyor belt, set up right in the field. The conveyor belt slowly transports the zucchini into the sorting and packaging area. Here, workers carefully inspect them before removing any bruised or overly mature fruits, before arranging the stem zucchinis into bins. And that's how farmers in various states harvest fruits and vegetables. If you found this video interesting, please leave a like, comment, share, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any new content from us. Goodbye and see you in the next video. Around the world, each country boasts its own unique specialty crops, nurtured by the distinct climate and soil conditions of their land. Today, we'll explore how farmers across the globe harvest these special vegetables and fruits in their regions. The lychee is a beloved fruit, widely cultivated in Asia, particularly in China, India, Vietnam, and Thailand. From May to early June is the main lychee harvesting season. Farmers typically pick lychees on dry, sunny days. The method for harvesting lychees is quite simple. Farmers either pluck them by hand or use a knife to gently cut the stem as close to the branch as possible, being careful to not bruise the fruit. Afterwards, the lychees are gathered into bundles weighing around 2 to 6 pounds and stored in a cool, shaded and well-ventilated area. Our next product is the prickly pear cactus. This plant is a vital part of Mexico's agriculture, with over 7.4 million acres under cultivation. The appropriate time to harvest prickly pears is in late summer. Farmers usually use tongs or a knife to cut the fruit, while wearing thick gloves or wrapping multiple layers of cloth around their hands to avoid getting pricked by thorns. At this point, a gentle twist and turn will cause a ripe fruit to easily detach from its pad. Immediately after picking, the fruit is washed to remove the tiny thorns on the skin. Depending on its intended use, it It can be juiced for refreshing drinks or processed into jams, accompanying sauces or desserts. Pineapple is also a very valuable fruit. In 2024, the global pineapple market was valued at around 28.7 billion US dollars. When the base of the pineapple turns yellow-orange, it's the clearest sign that the fruit is ripe and ready for harvest. Farmers weave baskets on their backs, skillfully twisting and breaking off each pineapple and placing it in a basket. This is not light work due to the significant weight of pineapples, and their sharp spiky skin and pointed leaves can easily scratch or cut the skin. Farmers have to carry heavy baskets of pineapples for hours. To alleviate the burden on harvesters, some farms have adopted mobile conveyor belt systems. Instead of wearing baskets, farmers simply pick the pineapples and place them directly onto the conveyor belt, which then transports the fruit straight to the collection vehicle. Another popular fruit is coconut. Coconut trees are widely grown across continents, such as Asia, Africa, Australia, and Latin America. Among these, Indonesia leads the world in coconut production, with over 18 million tonnes produced annually. Harvesting coconuts is not a simple task, as coconut clusters are often located high up on slippery trunks. Farmers must climb near the top of the tree, use a knife to cut individual coconuts or entire clusters, and then drop them to the ground. Nowadays, to reduce the risks of climbing, many supportive devices have been invented. Some devices allow harvesters to sit securely on a seat attached to a pole, using their feet to push the device gradually upward along the tree trunk. For shorter coconut trees, farmers use long poles with curved blades or hooks to reach up and skillfully cut the fruit stems. The fallen coconuts are then gathered into piles and sorted by ripeness of processing into various products, such as dried coconut meat, coconut water, or coconut oil. Next, we continue to Hokkaido, Japan, famous for its Densuki black watermelons. Each season, farmers harvest no more than 100 fruits, making Densuki watermelons incredibly valuable. When it's time to harvest, growers must use scissors to cut the stem of each fruit, being absolutely careful to not pull hard to avoid scratching the fruit. Afterwards, the watermelons are wiped clean, their surface inspected and stored in a dry, cool environment to maintain their freshness before being sold. The special thing about Densuki watermelons is that they are not like regular watermelons, but are put up for auction at major events, where each fruit can fetch a price of up to 6,000 US dollars. This type of watermelon has crisp flesh, fewer seeds, and is sweeter than other watermelon varieties. Now we'll head to Mexico, the homeland of the agave plant, the main ingredient for its famous tequila. Few would guess that to create a sparkling glass of tequila, farmers spend 8 to 10 years tending to each agave plant amidst the harsh sun and wind. The task of harvesting agave is entrusted to skilled labourers, often called humidores. They use a collar, a long-handled tool with a sharp-rounded blade to flip the plant, trim off each thorny thick leaf, chop off the rootstock and meticulously pare down the extract to the core, known as the pina. These pinas are then transported to the distillery, ready for liquor distillation. Meanwhile, the rest of the plant, such as the leaves, is discarded or used as compost to replenish the soil. This versatile plant yields a value of $82.3 US per 247 acres. Next, let's explore how farmers harvest one of the fruits dubbed the tropical queen, mangosteen. Mangosteens usually ripen and are harvested from about April to July each year. Harvesters typically use long poles with soft cloth bags attached underneath. When raising the pole, they skillfully hook the fruit and gently detach it from the branch, allowing it to fall neatly into the bag. Mangosteens on lower branches can be picked directly by hand. After picking, farmers collect the ripe fruit into baskets. They are then sold at markets or to traders. Our next destination is the jackfruit orchards in Southeast Asia. Under good conditions, a single jackfruit tree can yield hundreds of fruits in a single year. When harvesting, farmers use a sharp knife to cut the fruit stem from the branch. Some climb the tree to cut jackfruits from higher branches. They operate as gently as possible to avoid affecting the fruit's quality. After being harvested, jackfruits are laid horizontally, with the stem pointing downwards to allow the sap to drain naturally. Then, farmers load the jackfruits onto vehicles for sale. When it comes to famous fruits in Southeast Asia, longan cannot be overlooked. The harvest area for longan in Thailand alone reaches over 650,000 acres. As summer arrives, longan clusters begin to turn yellowish brown, signalling it's time for harvest.
Russian President Vladimir Putin thought he had it all figured out in Ukraine. Facing onslaughts from Ukraine's drones, he installed air defense systems in the territory Russia has snatched so far. These systems were supposed to be impenetrable, invincible shields that would guard Putin's troops as they planned future advances. Putin was wrong. Ukraine just obliterated Russia's so-called impenetrable shield in a daring drone strike that has sent a $10 million air defense system up in smoke. On July 9th, RBC Ukraine reported that the Black Forest Brigade of Ukraine's 413th Separate Raid UAV
Let's head overseas where Russia fired another massive barrage of drones.
A Ukrainian spy chief has been gunned down in Kyiv, sparking claims of a Russian hit. just hours after Moscow launched.
Welcome back. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov today in Malaysia. Welcome back. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov today in Malaysia for talks. Both leaders are in the country for the gathering of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. The meeting comes as Russian drones and missiles struck Kyiv. Ukrainian officials say at least 2 people were killed and 22 others were injured. Rubio spoke to reporters about what he discussed with Lavrov.
I echoed what the president said, of both disappointment and frustration at the lack of progress in peace talks or the path forward. So we'll continue to engage. We shared some ideas and comments, which I'll take back to Washington as early as this evening in terms of calls and reflected, and perhaps there's something to build on there. So, but it was a frank conversation. It was an important one. We had it, and we talked about some other items as well and related to the war in Ukraine, but that was obviously the first and foremost topic that we discussed.
I want to bring in CBS News foreign policy and national security contributor H.R. McMaster for more on today's meeting. Thank you so much for joining us today. We know the war continues to drag on, but is this a sign that any dialogue is progress toward eventual peace in Ukraine?
Well, Mugo, as you know, Secretary of State said, hey, it is important to keep talking, but you've got to keep your expectations low with the Russians, and especially, with Sergei Lavrov. Not only because the guy is kind of insufferable as a human being, but because he's been like the mouthpiece for the Kremlin's aggression for so long, and actually, there's some debate about how much sway he really even has within the Kremlin. So, hey, keep talking, and if you can help us understand better, I think Russian intransigence at this point, which I hope will compel President Trump to, to continue to support, and increase support for Ukraine, and put more pressure on Putin. I think what's becoming clear is, hey, the Kremlin hasn't changed their programs. And in fact, they're doubling down on their onslaught against the Ukrainian people.
So, I want to ask you about this because after a brief pause, the White House will now ship some weapons to Ukraine to help in their war efforts. But just how important are these specific weapons in Ukraine's efforts to stop Russia's attack?
Hugo, they're very important. We just had in the last 24 hours the largest aerial onslaught on Ukraine since the beginning of the war. So it's really important to have what we call tiered and layered air defense. And so what Russia is doing is they're using drones, they're using decoy drones, they're using different types of missiles, including ballistic missiles. And you need the Patriots, which have been sort of an issue here, for some of the most difficult missiles to shoot down. But hey, one of the things that concerns me too, Hugo, is they also need long-range precision strike capabilities. Because to have a good integrated air defense system, you have to be able to shoot down arrows, but you also have to be able to kill the archer. So it's important, I think, to continue support for Ukraine, and maybe with a long-term low-interest loan. I mean, President Trump doesn't like to give stuff up for free, and that's okay. But there is the model of the loan to Finland at the end of World War I, so Finland can defend itself against the nascent Soviet Union. And guess what? Finland paid that back in full. So I think there's an opportunity here to bolster the defenses of Ukraine, bolster their will because they're under a very severe attack, and then convince Putin that he can't win this war. And that's the only way, I think, that we're ever going to get to some sort of a ceasefire.
So we've heard Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth talking about the importance of having some of those weapons in the reserve. I want to ask you about that. Is that important? And just at what point does the United States say, okay, we're losing out on all of these weapons that maybe we might need at some point?
Yeah, Secretary Hegseth is right about that, right? We do need to have stockpiles of these weapons. We just expended a large number of Patriots defending our base in Qatar, and also helping to defend Israel from the Iranian onslaught of missiles and drones and so forth, but really the missiles for the Patriots. But I think what's really important is the Ukraine war has highlighted a lack of capacity, production capacity in our defense industrial base. Hey, so we need to get after that. We need to expand our production capability, We have to make our supply chains more resilient. A lot of the key components for our munitions are reliant on adversarial nations. So
No,
it's
it's
really,
fine.
we should.
You want water?
A wake-up call.
You want?
No,
Production
I
capacity
give you
is
water.
expanding.
Thanks, Mom.
I'll have a short piece in the Wall Street Journal this afternoon with some statistics in there. But I think what's really important is, in this case, hey, remember the arsenal for democracy, like in World War II. Let's be Americans, not Americans, and expand this production capacity, support Ukraine, and make sure, that we have the depth, the strategic depth, to be able to deter this conflict from cascading further, potentially to the Indo-Pacific. Because who's watching all this, Hugo? Is Xi Jinping in China. And I think it's really important for us to demonstrate what President Trump has called peace through strength.
Yeah, some very important points there. Hey, Charlotte Pastor, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your time and your insight today. Appreciate it.
Very good relationship with Kim Jong-un.
Kita suka makan lukuk. Apa?
It's very important. I got along with him fantastically, as you know. Started off very rough, very nasty. The Rocket Man, the whole thing was a nasty deal. And then one day we got a call that they'd like to meet. We met. We have a great relationship.
Kenapa boleh lah kita? Ni udah boleh ni bang.
There's
Kita
communication.
sudah ada orang.
I think it's very important.
Untuk ada orang ni
Nuclear nation.
di that killer there is super unbelievable. Yeah, killer.
In March 2025, during an Oval Office meeting, reporters asked US President Donald Trump if he had any plans to re-establish relations with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Trump said he has a good relationship with Kim and referred to North Korea as a nuclear power. This wasn't the first time Trump called North Korea a nuclear power. On the 20th of January 2025,
Okay,
when
so
Trump
you
was
know who I'm gonna
inaugurated for
buy
the
if
second
I have
time,
money
he
to
said
buy? I
North
would
Korea
probably
was a
buy
nuclear power.
this. All your base belong to me.
We got along. I think you'll be happy to see him coming back.
It raised questions about whether he would pursue arms reduction talks or the denuclearization efforts that had failed in his
I
first term.
think we should buy Duskier. Destiny's powerful hand has made
North
the
Korea
best.
is the only country to have tested nuclear weapons in the 21st century. It spent most of Trump's
You
first
got
year of his first
600
term in office
baht.
perfecting its
We need
nuclear
300.
arsenal.
So
In fact,
let's
it was also during Trump's
Oh,
first year in
lepas,
office
lepas,
that
lepas.
Kim Jong-un tested his first intercontinental ballistic missiles.
so hot.
And then there was this historic moment. In June 2019, Trump became the first sitting US president to have set foot on North Korean soil. It was also the second time since the end of the Korean War in 1953 that a North Korean leader entered the South's territory. Kim and Trump met 3 times during the US president's first term, an approach that the world had never seen before. But how did the diplomacy play out?
We had a couple of meetings, and then Trump said that Kim Jong-un and Trump exchanged love letters. He said Kim Jong-un had sent him love letters. Kim Jong-un understood the way to deal with Donald Trump, and that's by flattering him, by playing up to him, by propitiating him. And Kim Jong-un was in some ways able to manipulate Trump that way with his own charm offensive. And Trump was frustrated by North Korea the first time around, where they had a couple summits, and Trump thought that he could charm Kim Jong-un into giving up his nuclear weapons. That was not going to happen.
Now, during Trump 2.0, Kim Jong-un's sister, Kim Yo-jong, criticized POTUS for stepping up provocations. and said it justified North Korea increasing its nuclear deterrent. Satellite images show that North Korea could currently be building its largest warship ever, a missile-loaded frigate equipped with hypersonic missiles, all defying UN sanctions. So what is North Korea's strategy regarding nuclear warfare? Will there be changes in policy towards North Korea's nuclear weapons under Trump's administration 2.0? We explore these and more on Beyond Wide Angle this week.
The position of the North's nuclear weapon state, together with its substantial and very strong nuclear deterrent, also permanently enshrined in North Korea's supreme law and the basic law, is a result of the outside hostile threat. Therefore, our nuclear deterrent does not change, no matter how desperately anyone denies it.
This statement was carried by North Korea's state-run television on the 9th of April 2025. It was reported that North Korea's status as a nuclear weapon state can never be reversed, no matter how much the United States and its Asian allies demand it. This was likely a response to a joint statement by the foreign ministers of South Korea, Japan, and the United States. This was made on the sidelines of a NATO meeting early in the month of April. According to the statement, the three foreign ministers reaffirmed a commitment to complete denuclearization of North Korea. So what does denuclearization mean? Why is North Korea building nuclear weapons? And how many nuclear weapons does it have? Let's find out. In June 2018, in Singapore, US President Donald Trump and the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un struck a historical deal to work towards complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. This was the first face-to-face encounter between leaders of the United States and North Korea after decades of hostility. But is there a shared vision of what complete denuclearization looks like? While handshakes were exchanged and agreements were signed after unprecedented talks in Singapore, no country with a nuclear program as advanced as North Korea's has ever denuclearized. So what do those terms mean? Are they even defined in the same way by everyone? The dictionary definition of denuclearization is the removal and prohibition of nuclear weapons. But its success or failure depends on whether denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula means the same thing to Trump and Kim. Disarmament experts say the uncertainty is partly traceable to how the United States historically defined denuclearization in the context of the Korean conflict. In 1910, the Empire of Japan captured Korea and ruled the peninsula for 35 years, till Tokyo's surrender at the end of World War II. Geopolitical tensions had started brewing between the United States and the Soviet Union in the late 1940s. As the Cold War began between these two giants, the Korean Peninsula was divided along the 38th parallel, a popular name given to the latitude line that roughly demarcates North Korea and South Korea. The North got Soviet backing, while the United States supported the South. In 1948, the two sides became officially known as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea in the north and the Republic of Korea in the south. The Korean War, which continued from 1950 to 1953, was a conflict on the Korean Peninsula. It involved North Korea, supported by China and the Soviet Union on one side, and South Korea, supported by the United States and a UN-led force on the other. It was in the aftermath of this Korean War that the American military deployed nuclear weapons in South Korea. But they withdrew the weapons in the early 1990s. It was part of an attempt to persuade North Korea to allow nuclear inspections. Thus, the American definition of denuclearization has since referred to the demand that North Korea relinquish its nuclear arms capabilities, making the entire peninsula nuclear-free.
So what the denuclearization would have meant was North Korea giving up its nuclear weapons and delivery systems. We estimate that North Korea probably has between 60 and 80 nuclear weapons. Now, South Korea has no nuclear weapons. And South Korea has 28,500 U.S. troops in South Korea. South Korea has a huge military and strong capabilities, and South Korea and the U.S. have been conducting a lot of war games together off the coast there and threatening North Korea.
On the other hand, disarmament experts believe North Korea has used denuclearization to refer to what it views as the American military's strategic capability to strike North Korea with nuclear weapons from afar.
It's correct to say that the goal, at least during the first administration, was denuclearization. This has also been an object of the Obama administration and the Bush administration before that. It has not worked particularly well because the problem set on the Korean Peninsula is not confined to the presence of nuclear weapons. That's just one aspect of a larger set of security questions that is very complex and interrelated. So it's very difficult to resolve the nuclear question in the absence of progress on all of these other issues. For example, the Korean War in the 1950s is still not officially over. North and South Korea are still officially in a state of war. And until you resolve things like that, it's going to be very difficult to get at denuclearization.
It is because of the history of the North Korean War between 1950 and 1953 that North Korea is creating its arsenal of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles. It believes that they are necessary to counter threats from the United States and its allies, which fought the North during the Korean War. Pyongyang also often touts the weapons as a matter of national prestige and proof of the country's power. Critics in Washington say the weapons are destabilizing. They pose a threat to the North's neighbors and divert resources away from the country's impoverished citizens. The United Nations Security Council has in the past passed multiple resolutions banning North Korea's nuclear weapons and ballistic missile development. But Council members like Russia and China blocked fresh sanctions and called for existing ones to be brought back.
Do not like
North Korea has never disclosed the actual number of nukes it possesses, so analysts only have rough estimates. In July 2024, a report by the Federation of American Scientists concluded that the country may have produced enough fissile material to build up to 90 nuclear warheads, but has probably assembled closer to 50. One estimate from a 2021 study by the Rand Corp and Asian Institute put the number as high as 116. Another expert at South Korea's Korea Institute for Defense Analysis said North Korea's nuclear warheads are expected to rise to 166 by 2030. North Korea has facilities scattered across the country that contribute to its nuclear program, including mines where raw uranium is gathered, and enrichment facilities and nuclear reactors for turning uranium and plutonium into bomb fuel. Built in the late 1950s with Soviet aid, the Yongbyon Nuclear Scientific Research Center in North Korea houses at least 3 reactors, which North Korea says are intended to produce electricity.
North Korea is very secretive about its actual capabilities. It has tested a number of ballistic missiles over the past 2 to 3 years. Most of the tests have been very unsuccessful. Many of the missiles have broken apart on launch or fallen into the sea far from where they were aimed. So we know that there is some difficulty, but we know that also that there is a ballistic missile capability. Ballistic missiles are not that difficult to develop. They don't require terribly advanced technology. The first military use of these weapons was during the Second World War on the part of Germany. So we're talking about 80-year-old technology here. It's not cutting-edge stuff by any means.
This is North Korea's Pyongyang
I'm just gonna follow
nuclear
this
test
guy
site.
because I think.
It is in a mountainous region in the far northeastern region of the country, about 100 kilometers from the border with China. North Korea has conducted 6 atomic tests, with Kim Jong-un himself spearheading the last 4. Nuclear tests were conducted in 2006, 2009, 2013, January 2016, September 2016, and the last one in September 2017. The first detonation in 2006 measured less than 1 kiloton, leaving experts wondering whether it had been a partial failure. Remember, a kiloton is equal to the force of 1,000 metric tons. So in 2017, which was North Korea's most recent test, the estimated yield was 120 to 250 kilotons. It dwarfed the 15 to 20 kiloton US bombs that destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945.
Fried chicken.
North Korea tested its first nuclear weapon back in 2006. North Korea has since had 6 more nuclear tests. But also, what happened during the first Trump administration was North Korea tested Hwasong-15 intercontinental ballistic missile that could hit the United States. So they not only perfected their nuclear weapons, but they also perfected their delivery systems. And it looked like the Hwasong-15 could probably hit anywhere in the continental United States.
Run begins in
North Korea has been self-sufficient for decades in fissile material. It is the main ingredient to create a nuclear chain reaction and explosion. According to weapons experts, the program relies largely on enriched uranium and produces enough annually for about 6 bombs. In addition, North Korea appeared in mid-2021 to have resumed plutonium-producing operations, another means of creating fissile material. Last year, in September 2024, it released photos for the first time of a plant that enriches uranium for bombs, indicating it no longer sees the need to hide the program. It had denied nuclear plans outright when then US President George W. Bush first made an accusation in 2002. The Kim Jong-un regime has been engaged in rapid modernization of its armed forces. It is reportedly developing a range of new weapons and testing intercontinental ballistic missiles that have the potential to reach almost anywhere in the United States. Satellite images taken on the 6th of April 2025 show what could be North Korea's biggest warship ever. Probably more than double the size of anything in leader Kim Jong-un's naval fleet.
And eat a fried chicken, come on.
The ship is under construction at the Nampo shipyard in North Korea's west coast, which is about 60 kilometers southwest of the capital Pyongyang. Pictures show ongoing construction of weapons, which is likely a guided missile frigate or FFG. It is designed to carry missiles in vertical launch tubes for use against targets on land and sea. It's done despite United Nations sanctions that have put strict limits on access to materials and technology to develop those weapons. Thought closer ties with Russia since the beginning of the Ukraine war could be helping North Korea overcome the UN sanctions. At over 140 meters long, this guided missile frigate could drastically alter the balance of power in the region. Equipped with vertical launch systems and possibly hypersonic missile capabilities, the vessel signals a bold leap in Pyongyang's naval ambitions. Russia and China have had diplomatic relations with North Korea for many decades. China and North Korea have had ties for more than 75 years. Although the relationship remains stable, it has also weathered strains and mutual distrust. Analysts say North Korea is more of a liability today for China than a valuable ally. In recent years, North Korea has forged deeper military ties with Russia amid its war against Ukraine. In fact, in June 2024, Russia and North Korea signed a strategic partnership agreement with a mutual defense clause.
The interesting thing is that we have seen in the past year a developing relationship between North Korea and Russia. North Korea has provided soldiers and ammunition to Russia's war against Ukraine. In return, presumably, Russia is going to supply some help to the ballistic missile program of North Korea. This has not been confirmed officially, but it's logical to think that this may occur.
China's 1961 treaty with North Korea, which was renewed most recently in 2021, also contains a mutual defense clause, raising questions about the existence of a trilateral axis. Claims about the existence of such an axis points to the anti-Western positions these states share, and their potential to undertake coordinated action directed against Western interests.
So we're seeing them as this new axis of evil. And so the more we do that, the more they are driven into each other's arms. Russia then developed new security ties and friendship ties with North Korea. China and North Korea have effectively a nuclear pact, saying that if North Korea is invaded, China will come to its assistance. Not if North Korea provokes the invasion, but if North Korea is innocently invaded. And that possibility certainly exists, although we're all hoping, of course, that never happens. But clearly, the U.S. is, because of its global policies, the effect is that China, North Korea, Russia, Iran, and others are forming a much closer alliance than they had previously.
In fact, on the 10th of April 2025, Admiral Samuel Paparo, the head of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, told the Senate Armed Services Committee that China has provided 70% of the machine tools and 90% of the legacy chips to Russia to help Moscow rebuild its war machine. He also warned senators that the military support China and North Korea are giving Russia in its war on Ukraine is creating a security risk in this region. Washington will, after all, be dealing with a very different Kim now. In the last 4 years, North Korea's alliances have shifted, and Kim's relationship with other world leaders appears to have strengthened. The last meeting between North Korea and the United States during President Trump's first tenure did not advance into a deal to get North Korea to give up its prized possession, its nuclear weapons. Since then, Kim has advanced his missile program and claims to have tested a hypersonic missile despite being subject to strict international sanctions. So the question is, can their relationship be rekindled? Or will the US policies of North Korea be expected to evolve under Trump 2.0?
I think that the current focus of the Trump administration foreign policy is much more on economic issues right now, the tariffs in particular. And since there is not really a trading relationship between the U.S. and North Korea, that means that there will not be very much engagement
on that front. Trump has said how he wants to meet with Kim Jong-un again and improve relations with the goal of denuclearizing North Korea and the Korean Peninsula. That might be a good goal, but it's not going to happen. North Korea not going to be. North Korea is in no more mood to give up its nuclear weapons than Trump is to give up his hamburgers. So it's not about to happen.
Okay, I guess it's fine.
North Korea now
Like, at
possesses
least we
several
did
dozen
something.
nuclear warheads. Since Donald Trump's second-term inauguration, he has often expressed a willingness to engage in talks with the North Korean leader. It remains to be seen whether the long-standing goal of complete denuclearization continues to be the ultimate objective of US policy towards North Korea. However, delays in reaching agreements will only worsen an already dire situation.
On March 26, 2018, a passenger train leaves Pyongyang, North Korea. 21 bulletproof cars painted an olive drab lumber across the countryside, then over the Chinese border. Rumors begin throughout the international community. This is the official train of the North Korea leadership, used by Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il, the grandfather and father of current leader Kim Jong-un. No one outside the notoriously secretive nation knows who is aboard. Some speculate it is Kim Yo-jong,
Balloon.
whose younger sister and most trusted advisor. It is not until the train reaches its final destination, Beijing, that it is revealed Kim Jong-un, the 34-year-old dictator himself, is the passenger. In the months preceding this meeting, what follows in Beijing, and in the months to come, are the preliminary steps to what may be the most important diplomatic event of our young century. A path to peace on the Korean Peninsula, and a way to bring the North Koreans into the international fold after 70 years of isolation. But the path to peace will be one of twists and turns, as allies and the U.S. jockey for position to protect their interests and maintain security. By the time President Donald Trump and Chairman Kim Jong-un meet face-to-face in Singapore, it is still unclear what each party wants or will be willing to do. This is the great game. North Korea remains an enigma. And only those who have sat across the table with North Korean negotiators understand the challenges.
I do believe that they're very tough. They're very well prepared. They read everything, especially what makes them so tough. It's not just the culture, but the fact that they have been isolated. They've been sanctioned. They hardly any of them, the citizens, leave North Korea. They have television that's programmed every evening for 3 hours. The government tells you what you're going to see. And inevitably, they hate the United States. At the end of the day, diplomacy is really trying to get the other side to do something they don't really want to do. Dealing with another country, make it clear that you make the hard choices today, and I'm not promising you the end of hard choices, but I'm promising you that in the future you won't have to make them.
Mostly, I don't see it as a gift. You usually use diplomacy more with your adversaries than with your friends. And so do in order to solve the problem. And it's not a gift. It is how you talk to those you disagree with.
The Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK, is anything but democratic. From the ashes of World War II loomed the first post-war spread of Soviet communism. In August 1945, the Korean Peninsula and her people were effectively divided at the 38th parallel, an arbitrary divide. Using the National Geographic map, the future U.S. Secretary of State, Dean Rusk, and fellow Army staffer, Colonel Charles Tick Bonesfield, knew the decision of the 38th parallel made no economic or geographic sense. But with the Cold War about to cast a long shadow, the United States wanted Seoul and the democratic-leaning South under their alliance. Kim Il-sung, the young charismatic rebel, famous for his insurrection against the brutal, decades-old Japanese occupation, vied for power and shaped this new republic in the Stalinist fashion, adopting a totalitarian reign of terror. Kim solidified his place in the Soviet-backed North, then sought to unify the peninsula by invading the South and starting the Korean conflict on June 25th, 1950. In an era of renewed optimism, 3 years later, a ceasefire was reached. North Korea, a nation established by warfare, will be perpetuated by self-imposed isolation, bloodshed, and humanitarian horrors.
It's the most unique country in the world. What other country in the world is Confucian, communist, hereditary, dynasty? There's no country like this. While it also commits human rights violations, United Nations Commission of Inquiry said there's no other parallel in contemporary history except Nazi Germany, and this is North Korea. I don't think there's another country that's more isolated than North Korea. So, truly a unique place.
And they have been challenging American policy for nearly 70 years.
I think any political question has to start with a map. And when you look at a map of Northeast Asia, it's a pretty compact area. And you're seeing Russian Far East interests right there. You're seeing Japan right there. China, enormous interests right there. South Korea. In the middle of this, you have this funny little thing called North Korea. And so how does it affect the countries around it? And I would say it affects them all big time.
North Koreans figured out how to work with the United States. So there's usually a provocation of some sort, whether it's a missile test or a nuke test. And then there's international condemnation that follows. And then they sort of up the ante, like a poker game. Oh yeah, here's more. And then sort of we have a collective, oh no. And then they step back and say, okay. And here's what we can do. They have some sort of charm offensive, peace offensive. Then we meet with them, we negotiate, we give them aid. Some wars, some time passes, then back to provocation. So sort of provoke and get paid cycle.
For generations, the North Korean people have been controlled by a police state that has perfected propaganda to an art.
Two nationalities.
Their belief in the Kim family dynasty is absolute devotion.
Even though they are couple IC.
Information is tightly controlled by the
Purple and red different like
established in
Purple is the one that is like other
purple atau yang bukan born in Brunei. Yang red itu baru tak.
Yang red itu stateless.
Stateless tapi born in Brunei.
As long as you don't have two nationality like me before. I'm considered like Malaysian, right? So those people are like who are like that. They are required to pay for their own medical. They are charged. Udah lagi macam dulu. Even if your spouse is a Bruneian, these people are required to take insurance.
Kim Jong-un only had a very short
Tapi
amount of
benar
time
in a way lah.
his legitimacy.
Because sometimes why you want to keep your nationality?
Had 30
In a way, if you want to get
create
free
his
medical and all that, because these are actually for the Bruneian and the citizen lah. Free. Even if you go any other countries pun macam itu lah. That's why now the government baru dah akan membuat macam itu.
Sudah miskin.
You know how much they have incurred for including these people? 70 million. Covering these before. Now baru takkan ambilan.
Ya tangan ko sudah miskin. Baru ano. Dulu ndak.
So they are required to take lah.
Because that's not where Kim Jong-un wanted his
Health
legacy.
insurance.
That was Kim Jong-un's legacy, was the nuclear program. His legacy was to create the strong.
Foreigners aku hendaknya je tu. Kalau foreigners yes lah. But then foreigners before they are by their boss. Kalau anything.
Tapi kalau foreigners dulu, kalau ya employed by government, free. Nada ano. Cover all.
Yeah, like it depends on their policy, but the thing is, like before, never strictly to say ambil insurance, health insurance, nada pegangan. Because covered, if anything, if your hospital bill, it's either your company will pay for you, right? Because they're the ones sending you.
Senior military and ministry
Aku yang tahu. Tapi now they have to pay.
Buat atu.
But then if they don't do it now, they will get more poor.
But he needs something else.
So they are now already 70 million sudah.
Nuclear
Macam
weapons
orang
that
to
could pose
cover
a real present danger
government
to America and her Asian allies.
Saya
This would be the
Bunda lain na bukan ialah sudah miskin baru ta.
And if he couldn't show
Dulu
legitimacy
ndak.
on the
Cuma
economic
dari dulu.
Oh ya buat daya tapi dulu asal siapa namanya nek macam pilihan nato yang punya bini orang Singapura, yang punya menantu orang luar.
Siapa?
Ini Isa bah.
Tapi ya kawin nalo pini saya jadi orang Brunei.
Yang punya menantu udah jual.
Menantunya.
Ya tak itu dulu ada rule that the anak can follow the wife.
Tapi menantunya mana dari sini? Yang mana satu kan?
Ada.
Balik Canada.
Ada. That guy open the Fratini's restaurant bah. That belong to the menantu bah.
Menantu yang mana satu?
Yang bapak si Anissa nih lah, yang kawin sama Martin nah.
But I don't know anu lah. Yang ku tahu one of the son balik ke Kanada. Ada anu.
You mean anak si Isa toh?
Ada di Brunei.
Nah pokoknya anak si Isa kan cucunya.
Cucu atau cucunya tuh yang
Pokoknya cucunya
bukan anak
laki anaknya toh. I think he did not have I think he didn't change his nationality. Yang lagi pun sudah cerai lah kan. Bapak si Anissa nih lah. Anissa Awi cerai.
Cara itu balik ke Canada ya.
Laki bapak si Anisha
Nah yang mau di Brunei.
Abaya tak dulu rule-nya toh. Gara-gara tujuh toh. yang
Trump's rhetoric feeds
those
directly into the
people
North's
who are
propaganda
married with
machine
foreigner,
that
they
America
can follow the
wants to
mother.
annihilate North Korea.
Asal si Ishak punya anak tu cara sama lakinya, dia saya dia fleksibel masa tu, it started during itu je tu. Kalau ada orang kan langsung kan jadi macam itu, belum ada rule macam itu. Mana? Oh, gara-gara
Tusan balik ke Canada balik lah. They don't want in Brunei ba? Brunei you know.
Tapi the yang kulihat area tu abang si cucunya nek yang lelaki kawin sama orang Singapura. They're still here. They're still here in Brunei, but
Sooner or later also.
nationality nak tahu lah. Pasal the husband is actually a Slovakian. Slovakian. It's not like really orang putih. It's orang Europe sana lah, Slovakia. Slovakia lah. That's why si Anisha ni, her look is more to the orang putih sana. Macam yang bertaring atau macam vampire. Yeah, she got that kind of look. I say, ini bukan orang putih ni, orang putih.
But still they are European ma.
Yeah, but sometimes you can tell if they're really orang putih di mana, England kah, US kah, you know.
French kah, German kah.
This one
German ketara mana.
the father really look like the vampire one, you know.
Although they have European look, but they have dark hair. Atau German look.
Yeah lah. Their hair is dark, it's not blonde or brown.
Funny. German.
In places like North Korea, it's all
kali lihat bapaknya keluar TV masa yang kahwin ada.
ever since 1969, when North Korea shot down
No
U.S.
wonder.
aircraft,
Yes,
a
Slovakian.
bunch of Americans. The U.S. has
No,
moved
baris
away
vampire.
their behavior.
Cerita
So
vampire.
repeatedly, we have very smart officials who, when they're out of power, they
Nah, kau cakap that's mean
military options.
they don't like Brunei in their rule.
Once in power, and they look at
Brunei is controlled by Ugama, bukannya Sultan. Sultan just puppet tuh, ya tuh.
Well, okay, maybe this isn't the best.
Now I don't know lah. Now still lah.
Of course
Masih lah.
the son-in-law saya sudah cerai, tapi ada bisnes ini. The flat ini satu. Restoran bapak si Anisha tuh juga. He's the owner. He's still the owner. Maybe he's somewhere. He might not be here, but he is still the owner. Maybe he'll collect royalty lah. You know, namanya dia punya. Ini apa? Oh.
That was the reason why the Nazis put North Korea in the state's cause of terrorists.
North and South.
And it also shows you just the brutality and just the insanity. Because deep down they civilian
memang lah siya
people on board.
suka saya tu ada agak campur.
Pinisap niya wife pun Singaporean betul. Lah tu Cina tulin lagi.
Memang lah she's Chinese. You know that time when we went to the JPNC, ada kan? Iya tu yang disuruh amahnya.
Masih juga nampak muncing air tu.
Anda mana yang bertudung dia kan? Mana ada yang bertudung masa tu?
Kenapa yang mau bertudung?
Ya kalau acara istana bagi tudung.
겨울철 올림픽 경기대회에 말한다면 그것은 민족의 위상을 과시하는 좋은 계기가 될 것이며 우리는 대회가 성과적으로 개최되기를 진심으로 바랍니다. 이러한 전제에서 우리는 대표단 파견을 포함하여 필요한 조치를 취할 여기가 있으며
At first, I think there was a considerable preponderance of views to the effect that this is all an effort to create wedges.
Yes, today we have lots of the things to speak about, but I want to start from the update of the front line. So from till a third of a billion people over the course of 2 years, just from that. When you
Also, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky saying that Russia launched it. Also, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky saying that Russia launched its largest drone attack yet since the start of the war in Ukraine. Zelensky calling the massive attack the highest number of aerial targets in a single day, and framing it as another signal that Russia is not invested in U.S.-led efforts to end the war. This comes as President Trump is reversing his stance on sending defensive weapons to Ukraine after the Pentagon just last week froze the shipment of some air defense weapons to Kyiv. The president also slamming Russian President Vladimir Putin, saying he's unhappy with Moscow's latest attacks. I'm bringing ABC News senior White House correspondent Selena Wang for more on this. So Selena, first of all, how is the White House responding to this attack as we learn the Trump administration is restarting these weapon shipments?
Yeah, that's right. A U.S. official confirms to us that these weapons shipments to Ukraine have restarted after that pause was lifted a few days ago. And when it comes to that pause, yesterday President Trump said he didn't know who ordered it. Then today, he sidestepped follow-up questions on that, including whether or not he thought it was concerning that he wasn't aware of such a big decision. The president didn't directly answer the question. He simply said, quote, "I would know if a decision was made." The president is also saying that he is considering sending Patriot missiles to Ukraine, as he's made it very clear publicly that he's growing increasingly frustrated with Vladimir Putin, that his patience is running out. And administration officials tell me that this frustration has really been building for weeks now. Remember, it was last week that Trump had spoken to Putin over the phone. Afterwards, President Trump said that they made no progress on ending the war in Ukraine. The president saying he wasn't happy about that. Then yesterday, during the cabinet meeting, President Trump said that Putin is nice to us all the time, but said that in the end, it turns out to be meaningless.
Well, it sounds like, Selena, that also Senator Lindsey Graham today telling you, right, that the president is ready to act on some sweeping sanctions against Russia, and that he wants to get a bill on the table to do just that.
Yeah, and Kana, this bill has been in the works for a long time, for months now. Senator Lindsey Graham has been saying that they are ready to consider it in the Senate, but Senate Republicans have been waiting for a signal from President Trump, a sort of green light. So I asked Senator Graham, what makes this time around different? Well, he told me that he got reassurances from the president. He said they just spoke yesterday that he is on board with the sanctions bill, and he said that the current tactic with Putin just isn't working and that the president needs to change course. He echoed a lot of the frustration that we've been hearing from President Trump. He said that Putin is becoming more resistant, telling me, quote, "The more we talk to him, the more he bonds." Take a listen to what else Senator Lindsey Graham said today.
I hope to get the bill to the president's desk with a waiver, which will give him maximum leverage. He can waive sanctions at his discretion, but it will give him a tool that he doesn't have in his toolbox, and I want to get that to his desk before we leave in August.
So this bill would impose sweeping sanctions on Russia with tariffs at the highest 5% on countries that buy oil and gas from the country. And when it comes to that waiver that you heard Senator Graham mention, that will give President Trump more discretion about how the sanctions are actually implemented. Now, I also spoke with Senator Blumenthal, the Democrat who co-wrote this bill with Senator Lindsey Graham, and he described these sanctions as, quote, scorching and bone-crushing for the Russian economy.
Quite a description there. All right, Selena, our thanks to you. and you're watching Vantage with me, Falki Sharma. Pakistan has made a big admission. Back in May, during India's Operation Sindoor, Indian missiles struck Pakistani military targets. The attack sent Islamabad into chaos. In just 30 seconds, BrahMos missiles hit Pakistani bases, and Rawalpindi had no idea how to respond. The message to India is clear: Pakistan's nuclear bluff has been exposed. India does not need nukes to shake Pakistan's confidence. Precision strikes are enough. We'll bring you the full story. In the Ukraine war, Donald Trump has spoken to Vladimir Putin 6 times now since he took office. 6 times in the past few months, but still there is no ceasefire or peace deal, no progress. The US Congress has passed Trump's big, beautiful bill, as he calls it. We'll tell you what it means for the world. And why? On its 249th Independence Day, America feels like a hollow empire. How made in India cars are taking over Japanese roads, while Turkey's Erdogan is wooing Bangladesh. How Thailand's search for a prime minister has turned into a game of musical chairs. Tech giants are cutting jobs to make room for AI, but AI is also creating new jobs. We'll tell you where. And how Dior is under fire for cultural theft after Prada. First, as always, the headlines. In India, monsoons wreak havoc in the northern state of Himachal Pradesh. Heavy rains trigger cloudbursts, flash floods and landslides. More than 60 people have died, many are still missing. Hundreds of houses have been destroyed and several bridges have been washed away. A heavy rain alert has been issued for the entire state till Monday. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar likely to visit China. He will attend the foreign ministers' meeting of the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Recently, the Indian Defence Minister had also visited China. Jaishankar's visit comes as New Delhi and Beijing look to normalize ties. Russia becomes the first country to recognize the Taliban government. The Taliban, which came back to power in 2021, have called it a brave decision. China has also welcomed Moscow's Russia had removed the Taliban from the list of banned terrorist groups. Egypt slams what it calls Ethiopia's unilateral actions over the Nile Dam project. This is after Addis Ababa announced that the multi-billion-dollar project was now complete. It will be formally inaugurated in September. This is Africa's largest hydroelectric project. Ethiopia, Egypt, and the Sudan have got their heads over it for years. And it's the second day of travel chaos in France as air traffic controllers stage a 2-day strike demanding better working conditions. Several flights have been cancelled, affecting thousands of people. Airports in Paris are among the worst hit.
This is a strike on the Yukon Air Base.
That is all that Pakistan had. During Operation Sindoor, India launched BrahMos missiles towards Pakistani bases, and in that moment, Islamabad went into chaos. They had just 30 seconds to answer one terrifying question. Was this a nuclear strike? A top aide to Pakistan's Prime Minister has now admitted it, and he did so on live television. His name is Rana Sanaullah. He was talking about India's strikes on the Noor Khan Air Base in Pakistan. He described the fear, the utter confusion, and the paralysis. He said, when the Indian BrahMos came flying in, Pakistan had to choose: fire back and risk a nuclear war, or do nothing and wait. In the end, we all know that they did nothing, but those 30 seconds, they have exposed everything that Pakistan has been hiding. Islamabad may be claiming victory. It may be spinning tales about military deterrence. But now that mask has slipped, India's missile strikes did freak them out. India did have an upper hand, and as those missiles struck, Pakistan could do nothing. They were sitting ducks in this fight. That was the power of the BrahMos. And this is very important, this admission that has come from Pakistan, because Pakistan has built its entire military posture around nuclear weapons. For decades, it has poked and prodded India through terror proxies. Its messaging was always clear: hit us and we will go nuclear. That was the script. But Operation Sindoor has flipped that script. India did not escalate. Instead, India executed.
He's one of the most OP free players inside of the free.
It hit military bases in Pakistan, and faced with this new playbook, Pakistan scrambled. Its nuclear shield felt more like a panic button. Now let's be clear, it's not like Pakistan took this line down. They did their usual stuff. They tried the usual drones and some retaliatory missiles. All of them were intercepted. Most were ineffective. Some did not even make it across the border. And then came the denial. First, Islamabad downplayed India's strikes. Then it denied the scale. And then it blamed Indian aggression. And finally, when satellite images surfaced, the tune changed. Pakistan claimed it had shown maturity. But what they really showed was helplessness. They had no idea what was coming at them. More importantly, they had no way to stop it, which brings us to the BrahMos. It's a joint project between India and Russia. It is named after two rivers, India's Brahmaputra and Russia's Moskva River, hence the name BrahMos. The BrahMos can travel at supersonic speeds of Mach 3. That's 3 times the speed of sound. It can hit targets up to 800 kilometers away. More importantly, the missile has its own computer. You feed the coordinates into its system and then just launch the missile. The BrahMos will hit its target. It has a 99.99% strike rate. And we saw that in this latest conflict. So as Pakistan details its panic 2 months later, the message was loud and clear. India does not need to go nuclear to teach a lesson. It doesn't even need to make a noise. It just took 30 seconds. And in those 30 seconds, Pakistan's entire strategy collapsed. For years, Pakistan has used nukes as a cover, hiding behind a red line. It thought that no one would cross. But India crossed it, strategically and precisely. And Islamabad panicked. So in the end, the only thing that detonated was the myth of Pakistan's deterrence. As the dust settles after 2 months, we know one thing. The battlefield was not just on the ground, it was in Pakistan's head, and the BrahMos was living there, rent-free.
Very disappointed with the conversation I had today with President Trump.
Okay.
A phone call is routine in diplomacy, but between the presidents of Russia and America, it is quite rare. After the war in Ukraine began, the US downgraded ties with Russia. Then President Joe Biden refused to speak to Putin almost 3 years, 0 calls. But his successor has other ideas. Donald Trump has spoken to Vladimir Putin 6 times since January this year, since he took office. The latest call was on Thursday morning. Neither side tried to keep it secret. Donald Trump announced the call on his social media account. Putin talked about it at a public event. He said he had to rush out to take the phone call. If not, Trump may be offended. Listen to this.
Unfortunately, we have to wrap up. I have a protocol event. A conversation with the U.S. president has been scheduled. I don't know.